factors, but the economy is, the measurement of success. Does our economy grow? Do we add jobs? I think one important measurement is how broad-based is that economic growth.
Ports here in Southern California account for 30% of the nation's exports, 40% of the nation's imports, and about half of the business.
Some empty store shelves in a matter of weeks. The import trickle is quite apparent here at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, where about 40% of ships are usually from China.
A haunting silence now hangs over some of the busiest ports in the United States. Where once ships lined up in a steady rhythm of global commerce, the docks now lie eerily still, a stark symbol of an economic slowdown unlike any seen in recent memory. The sweeping expanse of empty berths, with only a few vessels trickling in from the Pacific, speaks volumes. Container bookings from East Asia have plummeted, and cancellations continue to surge. The root of this sharp downturn? A ripple effect from President Donald Trump's towering tariffs on Chinese imports, reaching up to a staggering 145%.
China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA. So we're going to be charging.
Despite a formal trade agreement between China and the U.S., the consequences of these measures are still unfolding. Ports are vacant, supply chains disrupted, and chaos is reverberating across industries, from trucking and warehousing to retail and logistics. While the White House defends its stance as a move to protect American interests, industry experts are calling it the most severe shipping crisis of the past decade. So, how deep does this disruption go? Which sectors are being hit the hardest? And what might the long-term cost be to the American economy? According to a recent report by Vision, a non-profit shipping tracker, container bookings from China to the U.S. have plunged by nearly 50% compared to last year. Week by week, this number continues to slide. The most dramatic declines are being seen in sectors like technology, textiles, and raw materials. Port authorities confirm that approximately 400,000 containers have been removed from schedules, an unprecedented event that signals not just a drop in imports, but the partial collapse of the nation's supply chain. The West Coast ports are bearing the brunt of this collapse. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which typically handle nearly half of U.S. foreign trade, report import declines of 35% and 30%. Respectively. In Seattle and Tacoma, the situation is even more dire. There are days when not a single ship arrives. Terminal operators speak of empty machines, idle cranes, and silent yards. Many containers that do arrive go untouched. There's no one to claim them. Behind this chaos is the new tariff regime, announced in March and implemented in April. These steep duties have turned importation into an unaffordable gamble. Companies, unable to shoulder the cost, are canceling orders. Shipments that once carried goods across oceans now sit abandoned in Asian ports. The human toll is equally severe. Every port supports thousands of workers, crane operators, warehouse staff, inspectors, truckers. With ship traffic cut by more than half, shifts have been reduced, wages slashed, and layoffs begun. Los Angeles and Long Beach, with a combined annual throughput of 17 million TEUs, may now lose 5 to 6 million TEUs this year. That threatens up to 800,000 jobs, directly and indirectly. Union representatives from the ILWU report a 40% drop in work shifts. Truckers, once moving 40 to 50 containers a day, now haul just 10 to 15. Small freight companies are collapsing. Average monthly trucker earnings have plummeted from $12,000 $13,000 to barely $5,000. Independent truckers without contracts now roam the spot market desperately searching for work. One driver summarized the despair. Just 2 months ago, I was overwhelmed with cargo. Today, I can't even pay rent. The ripple effect continues through warehouses, transloaders, and forklift operators. Retail giants like Walmart, Target, and Home Depot are grappling with serious delays. Seasonal inventory has been canceled or postponed, and many are now operating with just 2 to 3 months of stock. The National Retail Federation, NRF, warns of a 20% annual drop in imports, forecasting empty shelves and soaring prices. Their estimate? An additional $15 to $20 billion in costs passed on to American consumers. Even railroads and inland logistics hubs are clogged. On the Kansas City rail line, over 2,000 containers have sat unclaimed for more than a week. Some contain perishables. Others goods for urgent consumption. Buyers, deterred by customs duties and delays, have walked away. A logistics manager said bitterly, "The goods arrive, but the buyer disappears, leaving us with the cargo and the cost." Economists warn this bottleneck could shave 0.4 to 0.6 percentage points off annual GDP. Should it persist for 6 months, the estimated loss could exceed $50 billion. States relying on international trade, California, Washington, Texas, Georgia, are especially vulnerable. Exporters are also suffering. China, in retaliation, has imposed tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. Farmers in Iowa and Wisconsin are watching their markets evaporate. The pain is spreading across the economy. And yet, the White House maintains its course. President Trump has framed the tariff policy as an act of economic patriotism. But even American manufacturers depend on imported parts. Rebuilding domestic production could take years. Until then, prices will rise, consumer power will fall, and the inflation fight will become steeper. Already, inflation is hovering around 5%. Analysts warn it could climb to 7 to 8% if the import drought persists. A store manager laments, "That $200 television from last year now costs $270. People expect discounts. We can't even hold our margins." Across the country, retailers are seeing fewer customers and shrinking profits. Meanwhile, crime is rising. In Los Angeles and New Jersey, theft from idle containers is up 40%. With fewer staff and more unattended cargo, organized theft rings are capitalizing on the chaos. Insurance claims and premiums are rising, costs that will inevitably fall on the consumer. Now, with a 90-day suspension of tariffs acting as a temporary ceasefire, importers are racing to beat the clock. More than 1,000 ships are said to be en route, but port staffing remains low. If all those ships arrive at once, the system could collapse under the weight of its own backlog. This phenomenon, known as the whiplash effect, is the final warning. In a system so tightly interwoven, a customs barrier can function as an economic blockade. While some in Washington see this as a first step toward long-term independence, the data tells a different story. Delayed cargo, job losses, rising prices, and structural strain. Unless swift and sensible reforms are made, the United States may find itself enforcing a trade blockade against its own economy. For the millions affected, from port workers and truckers to farmers and families, the cost is already becoming all too real.